If you feel lost in life, like everyone else received a map and you didn't, like you're standing still while the world keeps moving forward, let me tell you something that might sound strange at first, but could completely change how you see yourself. That feeling of being lost is not a failure of intelligence, motivation, or discipline. It's often a sign that your brain is operating on a deeper level than the system around you was designed for. Because while most people are busy following pre-written paths, your mind is quietly questioning the map itself, and that creates discomfort, confusion, and delay, but it also creates insight, originality, and long-term strength. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why feeling lost is often the first signal that your brain is preparing you for a different kind of life than the one society expects. Most people assume that feeling lost means something has gone wrong, that you made bad choices, wasted time, or failed to plan properly. But psychology tells a very different story, because the human brain does not develop in a straight line. It develops in layers, and people who feel lost are often those whose brains refuse to accept shallow answers, easy identities, or borrowed goals. They don't just ask, "What should I do next?" They ask, "Why does this path exist at all?" And that question alone already places them outside the normal flow of society, because modern systems reward certainty, speed, and compliance, not reflection, depth, or internal alignment. So when your brain pauses, hesitates, and refuses to commit, it's not malfunctioning. It's scanning for meaning, and meaning takes longer to process than instructions. Psychologists describe this as deep cognitive orientation, a mental state where the brain prioritizes coherence over momentum. People in this state don't move quickly because their brains are busy integrating identity, values, skills, and future consequences into one internal framework, and that integration phase feels exactly like being lost, because externally nothing looks settled yet, but internally a complex structure is forming. And the problem is that society does not teach patience for internal construction. It teaches output, labels, and titles. So when you can't immediately explain what you're doing with your life, you feel defective, even though internally your brain is doing advanced work that most people never attempt. This is why people who feel lost often appear thoughtful, sensitive, analytical, creative, or emotionally aware. They see contradictions others ignore. They sense misalignment before it becomes visible. And they resist committing to paths that feel hollow, even if those paths are socially rewarded, and that resistance creates friction because the world interprets hesitation as weakness, while in reality, it is discernment. And discernment is expensive in terms of time and emotional energy, but priceless in terms of long-term fulfillment. When you feel lost, your brain is not idle. It is performing what psychologists call background synthesis, a process where multiple experiences, interests, failures, curiosities, and observations are being combined into a coherent internal model. And this process cannot be rushed, because it relies on far transfer, the ability to connect ideas across unrelated domains. Unlike specialists who rely on near transfer and repeat the same patterns within a narrow field, your brain is building bridges between different areas of life, which is why your interests may feel scattered, inconsistent, or unfocused, but they are not random. They are data points. You might be drawn to psychology, then technology, then art, then philosophy, then fitness, and from the outside it looks like indecision, but internally, your brain is collecting raw materials for a future synthesis that doesn't exist yet, and that future role cannot be explained easily because it has no existing job title, and that is exactly why it feels uncomfortable, because human beings crave social validation, and validation usually comes from recognizable labels. But when your path doesn't fit existing categories, validation is delayed, and delayed validation feels like being lost. This is also why people who feel lost often experience anxiety, not because they are weak, but because they are holding too many possibilities at once. Their brains are simulating multiple futures simultaneously, evaluating outcomes, risks, and meaning, and that level of cognitive load is exhausting, especially in a culture that constantly compares timelines, promotions, and achievements. But here's the key insight. People who never feel lost usually inherit their identities, while people who feel lost are constructing theirs from scratch, and construction is always messier than inheritance. Evolutionary psychology supports this idea through the concept of adaptability. In unpredictable environments, organisms that rely on rigid specialization are fragile, while those with broader skill sets and flexible cognition survive disruption, and the modern world is one of the most unpredictable environments humans have ever faced. Careers disappear, industries shift, identities collapse, and people who built their entire sense of self on a single role often struggle the most, while those who once felt lost suddenly become valuable because they can pivot, reframe, and reassemble themselves faster than others. There is a pattern that appears again and again in psychology, creativity research, and real-life stories. Before clarity comes confusion, before alignment comes disorientation, and before original contribution comes a period of not fitting anywhere. This is not a coincidence. It's a developmental phase, and people who skip it often live lives that look successful on the surface but feel empty underneath, because they never allowed their brains to question the script they were given. Feeling lost is often the space where your old identity dissolves before the new one has formed, and that in-between state is uncomfortable because humans prefer certainty over truth. But growth happens in uncertainty, not comfort. And this is why so many innovators, thinkers, and creators describe long periods of confusion, self-doubt, and wandering before finding their voice, their work, or their path. Because originality requires stepping outside existing frameworks, and stepping outside always feels like being lost until a new framework emerges. What matters is not eliminating the feeling of being lost, but learning how to move through it consciously, instead of panicking and forcing premature decisions just to relieve anxiety. This means shifting from urgency to curiosity, from comparison to self-observation, and from external timelines to internal alignment. It means asking not, where should I be by now, but what is my brain trying to understand right now? And that question alone transforms confusion into collaboration with your own mind. Practical psychology suggests structuring this phase instead of fighting it, journaling patterns instead of judging them, choosing seasonal focus instead of lifelong commitments, and allowing your identity to remain flexible while your values stay stable. Because clarity does not come from pressure, it comes from integration, and integration takes time. But once it happens, it produces a level of confidence and direction that cannot be shaken easily, because it is internally generated, not socially borrowed. So if you feel lost in life right now, pause before you label yourself as behind, broken, or failing, because what you may actually be experiencing is a deeper level of cognitive processing that most people never engage in. Your brain is not wandering aimlessly. It is mapping territory that doesn't exist yet, and that takes courage, patience, and tolerance for uncertainty. Traits that are invisible in the short term, but invaluable in the long run. And one day you'll realize that the years you thought you were lost were actually the years you were becoming someone original. You were never meant to follow the map blindly. You were meant to understand it, question it, and eventually redraw it. And that process cannot be rushed without losing its power. So trust the phase you're in, respect the work your mind is doing behind the scenes. And remember this: people who feel lost are often not missing direction, they are building it. If this message resonated with you, take a moment to reflect instead of rushing to fix yourself. Drop a in the comments if you've ever felt lost in life, and subscribe to Gvitalo for more psychology-based insights into the human mind, identity, and personal growth. Because clarity doesn't come from speed, it comes from understanding, and your mind is already doing more than you think.